So most of my previews that I made going into the draft were like the top end guys, people that were going to go first round, but there was one guy who was going to go in a later round that I was really high on, and that was Lynn Bowden. I watched a lot of him when he was playing for Kentucky, and this guy is just an incredible talent. In my opinion, he was drafted as a running back. He often played wide receiver. A lot of people thought he was going to be a wide receiver. I think he's a quarterback. I think he is. Not necessarily like he's going to take Derek Carr's spot or anything, but more so in just the idea of, I think he's like a Taysom Hill type guy. I do think that he is somebody that you can, for one thing, he can play wide receiver, so you can put him out there, have him get significant playing time that way, and then you can also just have him, take the occasional snap. You send Derek Carr out wide, and now the opposing defense, they can't substitute. So now you can still, because he can play wide receiver, you don't have to worry about teams sort of realizing what you're doing. I think Bowden's great. And the reason why I think he's a quarterback is I actually don't think he's a disaster when it comes to throwing the ball. He's never going to be a pocket passer, not even close, but he can make an occasional throw. This is an example where it's going to be, cover zero, no safeties are deep, it's all man coverage. And the reason for that is because Lynn Bowden runs the ball so much. So you pretty much have to be in this coverage, when he's in the game. That's the route he's going to try to hit, which, makes sense. I mean, this is a great route against cover zero, and after the ball is snapped, you notice that his receiver, there's a little bit of separation, but it's nothing crazy. This is the kind of thing that it can be a completion, but it's not like somebody is just getting completely wide open, which can happen when there's nobody deep. And what you're going to see is that right when Bowden does make this throw, he kind of just floats it up there, gives his receiver a chance, and his receiver is able to make the play. Now, that worked for two reasons. One is it was a pretty solid throw and a good catch. But the other reason is that he just saw the situation, and it was a smart play by Bowden. He knew that the defensive player that was covering his receiver was staying too far to the outside, so he threw it a little bit further in. They were able to make that completion. That's an easy completion to make because of the situation, because Bowden is such a good runner with the football. So, same thing with Taysom Hill. The reason why he will, hit on the occasional deep ball, I remember he did it. He's done that in the playoffs where he's hit an occasional deep ball. And the reason why that works is because you do have to fear him running the ball. And then all he has to do is be able to be a somewhat decent thrower. And that's all you need. So he can be okay at throwing the ball. But obviously, let's be honest here. Nobody is going to, fear him throwing the ball. That's not how he's going to beat people. The real way that he can be effective is just running the ball. That's his best way he can be effective. This play is a great example of it, where the way this is going to work for Kentucky is they're going to have their center, their left guard, and their left tackle move out to block those two players right over there. And then what they're going to do is they're going to actually pull their right guard and right tackle over, and they're going to block the other two Missouri players who are in that area. So basically every Missouri player is getting blocked except for two, the ones that are closest towards the bottom of the screen, in that area. Those ones are getting completely unblocked right here, which oftentimes is a mistake, but what Bowden is going to do is he's going to fake pitch basically over in that direction. And so because of that, the hope is that he gets both of those two Missouri players to run in that direction. And if they can just move a little bit in that direction, Bowden is so fast, he will be able to outrun them. And that's going to be exactly what happens. They move just a little bit, and he is able to run over. 93 there for Missouri. Did a pretty good job of trying to get into the play, but it just wasn't enough. Bowden was able to get through, and now at this point, as you see in that box right there, there is one other Missouri player who has an opportunity to make a play. So, Bowden already had the speed to just get past the line, but speed will only get you to here. Speed will only get you to like 5 to 7 yard runs. To get those big runs, you also need footwork, but Bowden has that as well. Watch this move, how he gets to the outside and is able to pick up a ton of yards, and when he finally does get taken down, there's actually a late hit there, and he got a flag on that play, so they tack on another 15 yards. That's just what he brings to the table. It's honestly, I'm not saying he's as good as this player, but it's Lamar Jackson-like. Now, he's nowhere near the thrower that Lamar is, and I don't think he's quite as quick of an accelerator as Lamar, or honestly even quite as good at juking people out as Lamar is, but he's only slightly below on those last two things, so that's why he has a ton of value. Again, it's hard to say exactly how the Raiders plan on using him, but the idea of him running those types of plays with Josh Jacobs, next to him. I mean, that's just insane. That just seems like it'd be unfair. And it really does help a running back to have a quarterback like this. Like, we've seen Mark Ingram really be effective with Lamar Jackson because of that. This is a good example of how it works, where it is going to be a handoff, but Bowden is going to sort of fake as though he's going to be running up to the top half of the screen. And so because of that, that Georgia player isn't going to know exactly where he should make sure he's covering. And right after the ball is snapped, you notice that, okay, the handoff has pretty much happened at this point, but the Georgia defender right there, he's still staying in one spot and looking towards Bowden. They left him unblocked because they knew that there's a very real chance he's going to just be focused on Bowden. And because of that, it basically just gave you an extra blocker. The Kentucky running back, he was able to gain like 4 yards. It was nothing crazy, but they were able to gain some yards on that play, which was very, it happens not really because of a great play, but more so just a good play design. All you have to do is confuse one person, and you're going to gain yards. That's why you'll see the Saints take one of the best quarterbacks to ever play off the field on certain situations. Like on a 3rd down and 3, it's so crucial to be in that kind of situation where you can have a guy like Lynn Bowden. He can come out and he can get you 3 yards. He might not be able to get you 30 yards too often, but he can get you a few yards. So if it's a 4th down and 1, put him out there because he can get you that 1 yard. That's kind of the value in him, I think. I'll show one more play because the one other way that it can be helpful is just with scrambling and just sort of with design plays in general, where you can have him throw the ball and he can use his running ability to help him in that regard when you do have a design passing play, if you decide to do that, where what's going to happen on this play is that first things first, what they're going to do is it's going to be a designed rollout. So they're going to have their right tackle and also a tight end run out to block those 2 Georgia defenders right over there. Bowden keeps the ball himself and runs out to the top of the screen. That's the way this play is going to work. Makes a lot of sense. I mean, you have a quarterback who's good at running with the ball. If you do want to throw the ball, a designed rollout makes a ton of sense. However, this is actually going to be kind of a worst case scenario because Georgia is doing something that is going to be the perfect counter to what Kentucky is doing. I don't even think intentionally. I think it just worked out this way. But what they're going to do is they're going to have their edge rusher on the top half of the screen sort of run closer down like that. And then they're going to have that linebacker run around. And I think this is just to stop a quarterback run, not so much to, stop a rollout. But it's going to work out that way. So, right after this ball is snapped, kind of a perfect situation. There's a Georgia defender running right towards Bowden. So, disaster for Kentucky. Great situation for Georgia. Except for one thing. Lynn Bowden is really good at juking people out. And watch how he's going to make a move. He eventually does have to throw the ball away, but, at least he didn't get sacked there. Admittedly, it was a 3rd and 3, so, throwing the ball away didn't really do too much. But I think that more so just shows his skill set than actually how much positive impact he had on that play. And yeah, I mean, I do kind of question how much John Gruden will use him in this role. I think he will to some degree. I don't get why you draft him if you're not planning on using him as a Taysom Hill type. We need a name for that position because right now there's no name, so we have to just call everyone Taysom Hill. He's very different than Taysom Hill, but they would play a similar position, with the option quarterback type role. But even if they don't use him in this role, I didn't really talk about it too much in this video, but he can be a pretty good slot receiver. So, him and Renfrow can be 2 very good slot receivers. As we all know, John Gruden loves his slot receivers, so there can definitely be some value there. I mean, the Raiders, what they've done is, it's very interesting what they've gone out and done with this draft. Very interesting. I mean, in addition to Tyrell Williams and Hunter Renfrow, who they already had, they then went out and just got a huge handful of people. They got Henry Ruggs with a 1st round pick. They did also get Damon Arnett. But then they went out and they got Lynn Bowden, who's a wide receiver, and Brian Edwards right after, another wide receiver. So they're trying to collect all the wide receivers, it seems. A lot of wide receivers. But you know what? Hey, it's fun. It's definitely, I definitely think that at this point, I mean, they have 5 wide receivers. So I don't totally know what their plan is. But hey, I mean, I like all the guys they got. I might make a Brian Edwards video later. I don't know. So, yeah, I mean, interesting stuff. And that's kind of why I feel like Bowden probably won't just be a wide receiver. I think that if they were just drafting him to get a wide receiver, I don't think that they use him in the way that I don't think they would have done that. I think they would have just drafted Bryan Edwards and then drafted somebody else. I don't think you get both of these guys unless you have a special plan for one of them. And I do think that there is a very special plan for Bowden. But that's just my opinion. What do you guys think? Do you like this move? I love it. But what do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.